The amount of warm that I am right now is absolutely ridiculous. It is so hot. Hi positive readers, it's Positive Writer today with another video, and today I'm going to be telling you about all the books that I've read where the romance was just right. As you would probably know if you've been watching me, if you have watched my last recent videos, but I just made a video called Books That Romance Ruined because I have a lot of books. I had like maybe 6 on that list. They basically were books that romance really just ruined the entire novel for me. Whether it was like overbearing, whether it was too central, which is the same thing, whether it was the only plot point ever, whether the characters didn't think, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Whatever it was supposed to be, it wasn't that. It was romance. Which is why I came out with that video. But I wanted to come out here and somebody in my comments told me, I'll go and probably look up the comment and put it right here because thank you for saying that. But I wanted to make a video where I basically talked about the books where romance was A-okay and when I really enjoyed it. Because sometimes romance is done right. In these instances, it was. And I want to tell you guys about that too because it's not always everything negative. So, without further ado, I just want to start talking about them now. The first book on this list is Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Robertson. I released a 30-minute video on this. It was one of my only book chats of last year. And this book had a romance in it that did not ruin the story at all. If anything, it added something to it because it was a fantasy novel through and through. There was nothing about the book that was not fantasy, but the romance was still trickled in there perfectly. It was like they had just enough content to keep you guessing and to keep you wanting more, but not too much that you're like, why is this a romance novel? Which is what I love. It's a perfect example of a fantasy novel that does romance correctly. And honestly, I should have said it last just so I could say the best for last, because I think out of all these books, that one did romance the best because it was pretty long for a novel. I think one of these is longer than that, but still, it was so long, but it was so good. The romance was perfect in line with the fantasy aspect, which never overshadowed it or anything. I always felt like it was just enough, and Margaret Robertson did an amazing job with that. So I definitely think that if you want to read a good fantasy book that has a really good romance too, that does not take over the entire story, read Sorcery of Thorns. It's about this girl who grows up in a library, and one day she learns about this grimoire because these books come alive in this world, and basically she learns about this grimoire that's like a level 10 grimoire that will come alive and like kill everybody. And you know, she goes to sleep one night, and she wakes up and she's the only one up. Everybody's like not awake, which is unusual. And then this grimoire is alive, and she has to fight it. And then she fights it, but then everybody thinks that she's the one who released it. So all this stuff ensues. Read the book. It's amazing. The main character is taller than the love interest, which, if that's not superior ship energy, I don't know what is. So just read it for that reason, if only that. You know what I'm saying? There are so many reasons. Or you can just go watch my 30-minute video on it, even though it was a book chat, so it'll be spoilery, whatever. But read it. Obviously, this is one I'm going to talk about the longest because it's the one I remember the most and the one that did it the best. The next book on this list is The Darkest Minds by Alexandra Bracken. I read this book ages ago. I need to reread it because I really enjoy this series. It's one of my favorites ever, and it's great. But I read this, and it's amazing, and it did romance very well. I remember the romance from this book, and honestly, I never remember it overshadowing the story at all. By the way, this list is so small because I went through every single book like I've ever read ever on Goodreads, and I basically was thinking, you know what I'm saying, how many of these books that I enjoyed the ship of was just a romance book, you know what I'm saying, because I thought about The Cruel Prince, or I thought about, I thought about something else, The Cruel Prince, you know what I'm saying, novels that are kind of about romance, even though it's not a romance novel. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't want to pick those because it's obvious that the ship would not mess it up because the ship is the novel basically. But with this, it's not about a ship, but it has a ship and it's great, and the way that they did the ship into the story was amazing. This is a book about a girl named Ruby who basically, when she's like 10 years old, she does something that causes her parents to lock her into their garage and call the police on her. And she's sent to this rehabilitation camp because randomly, when she was 10, obviously at this time where her parents was doing all this stuff, a whole bunch of kids just started acting really strangely and stuff. And so they made these rehabilitation camps or whatever, where these children have to go now and basically be disciplined and stuff for their powers that they now have or whatever. Now it's 10 years later, 6 years later, she's 16 now, and she kind of is just vibing, and she now can escape Thurman, this camp that she's at. So she escapes Thurman, and then she's on track to finding other kids like her that have powers and go to this place called East River that's going to help all of them and stuff. It's like this, this home base or whatever for kids that have powers. Whole bunch of stuff happens. It's an amazing novel. If you want to read it, please do. It was absolutely phenomenal, and I still remember all the emotions that I felt while reading this book, and definitely will read it again because of them. the next book on this list was Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. This book is known for the fact that people hated the romance, and which is funny because I picked this up on a whim. It's not even on the list. I just put it on the list when I was about to record this because I realized that I read this entire novel and I loved every bit of it, including the romance, because this novel is not about romance. It's very long, but it was about like a whole bunch of stuff, but I thought the romance was amazing and I really did ship the two characters that were put together. In other words, this book is about this girl named Zelie who lives in this kingdom. And basically this kingdom magic is outlawed by this king who basically outlawed all magic. So people with white hair, aka Magi's, who would have magic, don't have it because it's illegal and stuff like this. And she wants to she doesn't understand what she does, but she just kind of hates that. And at the same time that she's hating this and, trying to figure out, maybe I should dismantle this and I'm sick of being treated like a shit or whatever because I'm a magi. At the same time that this is happening, this king I was just talking about who outlawed on magic, his daughter witnesses one of her servants getting killed that was her friend. And she steals this magical scroll that she was killed for and then goes on the run basically to kind of just because she's sick of the palace and she's sick of the fact that these people that her family is basically justifying hurting people and stuff like this. And she goes out and then she meets up with Zelie and then they have this cool thing going on where they're kind of like on the run from the people that her dad sends after her, which is her brother, because her brother's a prince, and he's like, keep this quiet, I can't have people knowing my daughter like running amok. So basically that's the story, and it's a great story. It's so much more than that, and I love the ship in this. I didn't think it overshadowed the story at all. I think it was fine. It was like ships that I've seen in other books that people love. I don't know why this one gets so much flack, probably because they're black. But still, I loved this book, and I love the romance, and I think it added something to the story that I still am longing for now in the middle of the second book. The next book on this list is The Wicked Deep by Shia Earnshaw. This is the shortest book on this list, and this book is about a girl who's basically in this small town where hundreds of years ago, these three sisters were killed because they were, suspected to be witches or whatever, kind of like Salem type of stuff. And they were all drowned in this river that this small town has, is connected to. And now, 100 years later, this girl is now basically, she's made her peace with this and stuff. She's like, well, y'all killed them, so whatever. But now, this random boy comes into the town, and she doesn't know about this curse. So she basically, it's the summertime where they do this curse, where this happens or whatever. These girls, they come back every single summer and take over the body of random wicked girls and basically, lure boys into the water to kill them. This boy coming into town, he does not know that. But she tries to figure out, should I save him or should I save myself, because what if they jump into me? All this type of stuff. It was an amazing novel. And that sounds like a lot to be this short, but I have so many dog-eared pages because these were pages that I really just felt like needed to be dog-eared because they meant so much to me. This book was one of my favorite books of last year. Wow! This book is one of my favorite books of 2018. I read it that long ago and I still remember the story vividly and still remember especially why the romance hit so hard, because it's a short novel. So if the romance was overpowering, you'd be able to notice it really quickly. But it was not overpowering at all. It was more about the girl's story and stuff with the town and everything like this. And it was beautiful. It had me absolutely sobbing at the end. I loved it absolutely. I finished it really quickly because of how short it was, and I just enjoyed every second. So if you need a good romance, that's not a book about romance, about something that isn't romance but has a really great one that also kind of works into the story, like the rest of these novels, pick this up. It's like mermaid-esque and siren-esque because it's about these girls that were drowned. So yes, definitely read this. I think it was amazing, and I think you should read it too. The last book on this list is the famous Tower of Dawn by Sarah J. Maas. Had to include one of Queen Maas's book on this list, even though she's not really queen anymore because she ruined the ACOTAR series. But nevertheless, Throne of Glass series is still my favorite series ever, and I still love it dearly. So, this is my favorite book of the series, right next to Crown of Midnight, but this is slightly above, because it was literally the most immaculate novel I had read in 2018. It was my favorite book of 2018, right along with Veronica Ross' The Fates Divide, which should be on this list, but isn't for reasons. But this is a book that's the 6th, I think, book in the Throne of Glass series, and this book is, spoilers for the series if you haven't read up to this book and want to still go in blind. But this is the novel that is the companion novel to Empire of Storms, in which Kale is now going to find a healer for his legs and to gather the people of what's the place called? Antica. I knew it was Antica, and then I second guessed myself. He's going to this place called Antica, and he's basically trying to rally up troops to go back and fight with Aelin and all the rest of the people, and he's also trying to find a healer for his legs. So he goes to this place called Antica or whatever, and his healer is somebody who hates him, because his healer knows people from the northern continent are like shitty and stuff like this, so she automatically does not want to help him, but her healer mentor is like, do it, and so she does it. And I don't really have to spoil it for you. It's a Sarah J. Maas book, so you know what's going to happen. But the romance was like the least of the part of the book that I really enjoyed. I mean, okay, I really enjoyed the romance. It was one of my favorite things. But still, it wasn't the thing that I really came away from appreciating. I came away from this book feeling so connected to Kale. I already did, but because he's my favorite character, and he never stopped being my favorite character. But I came away from this book feeling even more connected to him. I related to his story and his struggles and stuff so much, and his soul searching. That's what the book is really about. His soul searching and the way that he kind of comes out of this funk he's been in ever since he lost his legs, and ever since he found out Aelin was a fae. All the stuff that's been boiling inside him, he has to confront that in this book. And it was an absolutely beautiful novel, while also having this amazing ship on the side. And I commemorate Sarah J. Maas for this book, because you know her, like, she's done the most ridiculous scenes I have ever seen of any ship ever, but still manages to do stuff like this that really leaves me commemorating her awesome ability to write great characters and great relationships and great stories. So if you just, you know, obviously you're not going to just read this one and not read the rest of the series, but I definitely recommend, if you're like off about it because it's a companion novel and you don't think it's important or whatever, it is, and it was great. And if people say it was too long, I think it was beautiful and amazing, and I definitely think you should pick it up. If you just think, you know, you should not. In other words, those were the books that I thought romance was a-okay, and above all, just like the best novel, the best romances ever in books that were not about romance. And I think it was done absolutely well by all these authors. I think you should read every single one of these books on this list if you have not. What are some books that you thought romance was like really great in the novel without overshadowing the actual premise of the novel? By that, I mean that romance novels are not what I mean. I mean like a novel that's like a fantasy or something else that is not about a ship or two people being together, but it's instead about like one person or a certain plot, and then the romance is worked into it perfectly or in a way that you liked. Leave those down below, because I definitely need some more. There's no way it's 5 on this list. But without further ado, I'm going to end this video. I love you all. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you later with another video. Bye.